Okay, so recently I've been, sort of thinking of my situation, reflecting on my journey, right? When it comes to getting into the best shape of my life, overcoming the hurdles I did, building the good habits, and really, going from an insecure, skinny kid to, the physique, the strong, lean, jacked, and athletic physique that I've built today. And the reason I'm sharing this with you guys is because I cannot stress enough about how much difference it made throughout my entire journey. The second I stopped trying to be perfect, I stopped investing as much time as I did. I'm going to say it straight up. I was trying too hard, investing too much time, and trying to follow something perfect, right? That was just harming me, doing no good, right? It was just doing more harm than good, and that's a fact, right? Trying to follow something perfect when I was actually just overtraining, not recovering properly, worrying about macros and hitting the calorie goal rather than actually, how I felt or my gut or whatever my body was telling me, right? And it made such a difference, genuinely, when I started actually prioritizing my health, right? And not in the way that the world wants you to go about it, right? Everyone's trying to tell you, oh, to gain weight, you have to simply eat more. It doesn't matter too much if you have a few cheat meals. No. That's not fitness anymore. You can't even call that health. That's not fitness. That's just body manipulation. Right now, I understand. I'm not saying to go ahead and completely stop, right? Not eating like a meal, like a pizza now and then that you enjoy, right? Because implementing that into your diet, and making it sustainable, that is fitness, that is health. But I'm talking about the idea that you can get away with simply cramming foods down of whatever nature, whatever ingredients, right? Just to simply either lose weight, build muscle, or both, whatever it may be, right? And one thing that really messed me up at the start of my journey was all the conflicting information, right? However you hear from information, social media, just your environment, the people around you, whatever it is, right? There's always people trying to feed you rubbish, trying to tell you, oh, you should eat this, you shouldn't eat too much of this, right? A good example is eggs, right? People trying to convince you, oh, there's health risks to eating upwards of 4, 5, 6 eggs a day, right? Because of the cholesterol. Bro, that is complete rubbish. Who is telling you that? Where are they getting this information from? Genuinely, I have eaten 6 eggs every single day, probably for the past year and a half without fail. Now you do the math, you can calculate however many eggs that is. It doesn't matter. It allows me to feel good. I've built on significant amounts of muscle mass in that time. I feel good. Eggs always allow me to feel satiated and full. And they're just a really, really good food. Nutrient dense, high, like decent to relatively good protein. And yet that food, people are trying to tell you, oh, high cholesterol, this, that, and the other. But they're not talking about the fact that half the food you're eating has seed oils. Half the things in the store that says protein on it is just processed like shit that's just gonna absolutely explode your gut, right? Just make you feel terrible. And so this is a little tangent of the video. This is not actually what I'm gonna be getting into, but this is just a part of it that I really want you guys to understand before we actually move forward. So like I said, one thing that really messed me up was the conflicting information, right? On one end, you have I gotta eat chicken and rice 6 times a day and completely fill myself with protein shakes. But that's just not the way to do it. And I understand that now, right? I learned the hard way. I went through the protein shakes, the feeling sluggish, the feeling slow, right? Not feeling my best, right? But because I used to fuel and, just was so obsessed with gaining weight, I found out the hard way and had to learn that the best way to actually get it done and reach your fitness goals was, small changes in your lifestyle, building good habits, right? And actually doing what you need to do to actually go ahead and reach your goals. And it was foods that make you feel good, nutrient dense foods, right? And obviously, my goal, for example, was building muscle because I was extremely skinny, right? And that for me looked like eating high amounts of healthy whole foods that were calorie dense. So I picked calorie dense options to obviously help me on my way there, right? But for you guys, that may be different, obviously, depending on what your goals are. But you have to understand that stop letting people dictate how you eat, how you move, and you need to trial and error a little bit for yourself, right? You gotta have some wits about you, right? And that's just a fact. So now moving on to actually how to achieve your fitness goals, get to where you want to be, and actually buy back your time and energy from prioritizing fitness, even on a busy schedule, right? Now I get it, right? You obviously have responsibilities, you have things going on, you're juggling work. You know, I was in the exact same position, right? And I completely understand, right? You're looking right now as fitness as like a burden, something you have to do, right? Something extra in your day that you think is going to absorb your life force, absorb your energy, absorb your family time. But that is not the truth. And here's the mistake I made that I don't want you guys to make. Okay, so you need to think about fitness as something that doesn't need to be perfect, first of all. You need to follow something sustainable that you actually enjoy. And you have to have the mindset of, oh, I get to do this. I get to live my life in this way, you know, enhance my life quality, right? Gain more confidence and level up as a person, rather than like, oh, do I really have to do this today? Like, you have to have a reason why you're doing it. And with this being said, it doesn't have to remove from the time or energy you have throughout the day. And I'm going to explain why. Okay, so, you know, let's say you go to the shops you normally drive and it's quite close. Try walking to the shops. You know, maybe you're at your friend's house at the weekend. Try walking there and back, right? Maybe, you know, you have a lunch break at work. You know, go ahead and do some walking, right? Utilize, you know, the things around you in the environment that you already have. Utilize your already busy routine. So when you have breaks and, you know, when you have opportunities, you actually use them to take your health and fitness seriously, so you can, in turn, in the long run, be more productive, have more energy, right? Feel more confident about yourself, and actually live life the way that it's supposed to and the way that you want to. Because fitness is not about perfection, right? It is about, you know, making, you know, positive choices, right? Being able to not make bad habits because you know it's going to make you feel bad and you know it's not going to do any good for you, right? It's about just having that awareness and being conscious to yourself and living like a healthy, fit person and making choices consistently that proves that on a day-to-day basis. You know, like, you can't go ahead, convince yourself that you're, you know, a fit person trying to make changes, but then when the weekend comes around, you completely binge on alcohol and go off the rails, right? Because that's not fitness, that's not sustainable, and that's not, you know what I mean? You need to have more control, you need to have more direction. And, you know, because I was all or nothing, right? I had one goal and I was overtraining. I tried all the workouts, all the splits, all the meal plans, and I was overtraining, not prioritizing my recovery, and spending way too long trying to find the perfect routine. I actually sacrificed tons of my progress. I ended up burning out, feeling exhausted, and I had the opposite effect of what we're actually trying to do. But when you start taking things seriously, you know, and you start, you know, consistently investing, you know, half an hour to 45 minutes a week in the gym, you know, training efficiently, you know, eating good meals, right? Because eating good meals, first of all, does not take long, especially if you're, you know, meal prepping or you have a little bit of plan. It should take you 20 minutes, half an hour, you know, maybe a bit longer depending on what you're cooking a day, to really plan and eat good meals. Like, for example, eggs, do that in 5 minutes, genuinely, right? And it's satiating, high in protein. And it's just things like that you have to consciously come to decisions with yourself, and you have to really ask yourself how you sort of want to go about moving forward and how you want to live your life, right? And it's all about starting off, right? You know, and as you consistently build up those habits, right, you start going to the gym 3 times a week for even half an hour to 45 minutes, right? That's going to make you feel good. You release endorphins, you start seeing progress, you start feeling good about yourself. And now you're going to make more of an effort to, you know, start walking, right? Getting sunlight, drinking water, hydrating yourself. And none of these things, in the grand scheme of things, take time, right? You have to think of fitness as like sleeping or taking a shower, right? It's something you do on repeat without question every single day, but it's because it's so ingrained into your mind. And do they take long? No, right? No, well, they shouldn't do, right? Do they take long? No, but you do it every single day without fail, and that just has to be what fitness feels like. It's not something that you wake up and think, oh shoot, I have to go to the gym and I have to, you know, walk today, I have to live a healthy life. No, because people know, who have been doing that it allows them to enhance their life quality. They feel good about themselves, right? And exercise is health is wealth, essentially, right? And when you start realizing that, that energy bounces everywhere, right? You start going to the gym consistently, then you start, you know, making good meal choices, then you start walking more, then you start hydrating yourself, then you say no to drinking alcohol, then you say no to smoking, then you start building good habits, right? Because the second you realize and start investing into your health, you see the benefits that you get out of it. And the only time when it becomes a problem, which is also a phase I went through on my journey, is when you start, taking your health and fitness seriously. You're showing up to the gym, right? But then you sack off all the other habits. Because what's the point? Yes, you are wasting your time and energy if you go to the gym, but then you come home, you drink copious amounts of alcohol, you smoke, you set up the bad habits. That is when it's completely pointless and you are wasting your time and energy. But most of you guys watching this are obviously ready to make that change and step into the right direction and live a longer, healthier life for the better, right? So obviously you guys aren't going to be doing those things. You obviously clicked on this video expecting, you're beyond that point, right? You understand that they're bad for you and you shouldn't be doing them. But with that being said, when it comes, like I said, to moving forward, it doesn't make sense to focus on one area and really go crazy in that area and do what you're supposed to, right? Like showing up to the gym consistently, for example, right? Especially if you're someone on a busy schedule and you can't afford to not see results. It is so important you maximize your efficiency and, operate at a high level to the one you're already working at, right? Because, you're already successful in that area, you have responsibilities, but now it's even more important you operate at that high frequency as well and actually match that. So when it comes to, working hard in the gym or eating good meals, right? Let me tell you, it's hard to work hard in the gym and then eat constant shit. It's hard to eat very well and then not work out at all. You know what I mean? Like you don't do one without the other. Right? And that's just the way our mindset works, right? And it's very much like a domino effect. You start one good healthy habit and you'll want to do the next to optimize all the work you're putting in. Because if not, you are wasting potential gains and potential energy. All right, and that's one mistake that I made also at the start of my journey. I went through phases, right? Obviously, I'm telling you from years of experience and trial and error and making mistakes as someone who was limited on time and just was so desperate to see one goal, right? So you need to realize that, first of all, don't make the same mistake I did of, I still had the bad habits, right? I was still just not serving myself any good, but I thought going to the gym 5 to 6 days a week and absolutely destroying myself was the answer to everything, was going to get me to exactly where I need to be. But I was doing too much. I wasn't doing anything fitness related outside of the gym. I wasn't eating how I was supposed to. I wasn't living life how I was supposed to. And I certainly wasn't optimizing everything. Okay, and I lost progress. I made barely any results and I just got frustrated, angry, and I felt burnt out. Now, many of you guys don't realize, mainly because I've not shared this story too much on here or anywhere, but I want you guys to understand more about me so you can truly know that I'm not just waffling or throwing information at you. This is real. This is trial and error, and this is genuinely how I got into the shape that I am now, right? Like plain t-shirt on. Okay, that was some terrible lighting, but you get the point, right? I'm able to do to live how I want, or I'm free in my own body because of these things. So you can obviously take this information and do nothing with it, or you can take it and run with it and start implementing it, right? Because information without doing anything is to not know what the information actually is. So yeah, like I was saying, when I was younger, right, I was always athletic. I'm going to be completely honest. I was always athletic. I was relatively sporty, right? But sport was all I had, right? Competing in sports, I swam for multiple years, boxed, ran track, right? I was obsessed with just competing, really, right? Being an all-round athlete, powerful, explosive. And, I firstly started the gym, obviously, to gain explosive power and, enhance my sport and performance. But I genuinely fell in love with the gym, right? And I kept going to the gym more and more and more. And this is when, obviously, I experimented with overtraining and doing all the wrong things before I actually got to where I wanted to be. So, but with that being said, I was always sporty growing up. I always competed in sports, but just about every area of my life, right? Because I was sporty, I was extremely skinny, right? I was skinny, I was extremely pale, and I had really bad acne, right? So it's not a good combination, right? Or especially for me, I was extremely insecure. I was I felt isolated, even though I had a good group of friends, of people who genuinely cared for me and I care about them. Right, still with them to this day, solid guys, right? But it was just like, it was weird because I felt isolated internally, mentally, right? I felt trapped of being skinny, stuck where I was, not happy with the person I saw in the mirror. And I felt like sports was all I had going for me. I felt like I was a loser in pretty much every aspect of my life apart from sports. And genuinely, that was my personality. I started believing that that's who I was. So I started basing my emotions and my feelings and how I thought of sporting performance alone. And obviously that's a dangerous path to go down, right? Because, you have a bad day at sports. My whole day was ruined. I made poor decisions, got into bad habits. And I'm going to be completely honest. As a kid, I was quite angry, right? I held a lot of stuff in, but, sometimes I was quite aggressive. I wasn't the most kind of person to the people around me. And now, obviously, on this, like, from my content, from my YouTube, from my Instagram, from my TikTok, you can't really tell any of that. But that's because, yet again, of the mental transformation that I made and how the gym actually saved me from going insane and, doing things that I shouldn't have been doing, right? So I started mentally for just mental benefits, right? I started to do it for sporting performance, and I genuinely just felt so at peace and so at ease every time I stepped into the gym, which is probably one of the reasons why I used to spend so long there. And I was so obsessed with the gym, but not really taking anything else too seriously. It's because I still had the bad habits, but I was using the gym as just somewhere where I could release pain, right? Release energy that I had built up. And, with that being said, it's like, although I had the sports, right? I had all the performance. I was really, really insecure, really skinny, like I was saying. And only until I started building these small habits, eating clean or cleaner, much cleaner than I was, building good habits, right? And making positive decisions that would actually build me up into the person I wanted to be, rather than break me down and completely remove my energy and my time and whatnot, did I really start becoming the best version of myself. Now, many of you, you busy professionals and you ambitious guys who are already doing well for yourself, that are looking to operate at that high frequency as well. If you're struggling with confidence, you're putting up this barrier, this wall, right? That people necessarily don't know about you, right? I know exactly where you're coming from because I dealt with the exact same thing and kept a lot of this stuff to myself and from like below, right? Which is why I'm making it such an important thing to go ahead and share it with you guys right now, so you guys can truly understand. But I kept a lot of this stuff down. And you guys who are in that same position, just understand that, yes, going to the gym will help you, right? Release that mental stress and really help you and, get your time and energy back, so you can spend more time with your family, so you can live a healthier life, so you can, be the most confident and dominate, when you walk into a meeting, when you walk into a room, right? You can actually show up and set good standards for your children. And you have to realize that the gym is the first step of that, yes, and it is very important. But the building the good habits and consistently showing up for yourself, and every time you make yourself a promise, you show up without, make it a given. You have to set non-negotiables and start showing up for yourself and actually show up for the promises you make for yourself. Because those small things are truly what shifted me from being the insecure, skinny, pale kid with acne, right, who just felt alone and angry and was making poor choices, to the person who's, so much more confident, has the physique he wants, and is now obviously helping others do the same, right? So I hope you guys really understand that, because the habits and showing up for yourself is really what builds that confidence, right? It's not going to the gym alone, is what I'm trying to say. And which is why I struggled for so long, just in my personal image, my body image, right? And my mentality suffered for so long, simply because I was going to the gym and destroying myself, but not prioritizing or working in any other area of my life. So understand that the good habits and the choices you actually make outside of the gym are truly what's gonna, one, allow you to see the most progress, two, get all your time and energy back from actually training in the gym in the first place, right? And 3, building the good habits. You know, because right now, of course you're going to feel tired and have no energy and feel just disgusted with yourself, right? If you work like a busy professional, right? You have ambitions, right? You serve other people all day and you do the things you're supposed to do and you work at a high frequency. But then when you come home and it's time to show up for yourself and it's just you by yourself, no one telling you what to do, nobody giving you a direction or a task to do, if you can't even take care of yourself, of course you're going to feel tired if you sit down and watch Netflix. Of course you're going to feel like you can't spend any time with your kids if you look at fitness as something you have to do, right? And something like, and that you have to, you know, relax and get your energy back for the next day. But the only reason you feel like that is because simply you don't have the energy that you're supposed to have, because you're not making the positive decisions you're supposed to make. And the second you start making those and building the good habits is truly when you unlock a new level of energy that you didn't know you had, right? That you were probably convincing yourself, oh, I'm getting too old for, right? This is just part of old age. No. That's cope. Let's be real with ourselves here. There is more that we could be doing, right? And that's what I really had to come to terms with myself so I could actually start progressing and doing the things I wanted. Because if not, I wouldn't be here. I would still be sleeping in. I would still be wasting time procrastinating. You know what I'm saying? I would have never tried or started things or have the drive and ambition that I do today. And once you understand that you can use that productivity and that energy into your relationships, into your business, into your work, into your family, and you can just start spreading the positive energy and the confidence that you now have. So just know, as someone who's already on a busy schedule, who has responsibilities, it actually puts you at an advantage, to be completely honest, even though you don't realize it, right? Because you're already used to the structure. You're already used to being time efficient, to moving around responsibility to responsibility and doing things that you need to get done. You already have that urgency, right? You already have the I need to get shit done mentality. Right, and that puts you in a massive advantage. That puts you in a really, really good position. Because yes, you don't need to be in the gym 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. But you do have to make conscious health decisions and make smart choices consistently, because you understand that you care about your fitness, you care about your health, you care about how you feel and how you actually live your life, right? So that's how you're going to be put at an advantage, right? And then those 3 to 4, you know, intense but short gym sessions you have a week, right? They're going to start to feel exciting now, because you're not doing it every day for hours and hours and you're not boring yourself or tiring yourself out. You're going to look forward to those gym sessions, that short period of time where you can just focus on you, focus on getting better, getting stronger, you know, focus on obviously progressive overload, right? So getting stronger each week, you know, whether that be increasing the weight, increasing the reps, right? So you're actually giving your muscles an increased stimulus so they can actually grow bigger and stronger. You know what I'm saying? And then also you want to prioritize compound movements. So, you know, movements that are obviously going to require multiple muscle groups at once to actually carry out the movements. You know, you got your benches, you got your overhead presses, your pull-ups, your squats, deadlifts, if that's something you want to do. I know some people don't. But those movements are all great ways of building muscle in multiple areas and training multiple muscle groups at once, right? You want to obviously be smart and you want to be efficient and you want to have a game plan so you can actually make sure you're getting stronger in the little time that you are spending in the gym. But intensity over volume is so important, right? Because it's what allows you to grow, to actually develop, right? But you're obviously not killing yourself and destroying yourself to the point where you have to go off schedule and go off routine and start cutting out gym sessions that you didn't want to do. So it is about the weighing it out. It is about making it sustainable, making sure you can stick to it. But that's all the reason why you, as a busy professional right now, who's already used to working hard and operating at a high level in something and having that structure, is an advantage and allow you to succeed, right? If you truly put your mind to it and you do what you need to, and you follow the steps I've mentioned in this video. So as you can see from the title of this video, it obviously does say skinny. And that is because I went from skinny to jacked on this journey, right? This journey was all about me building muscle, seeing what worked when it came to gaining weight. But obviously for you guys, you can still implement these strategies if your goal is to lose weight, right? whatever it may be, both, whatever, you can use this goal. This is truly for busy professionals and high achievers and people who think they don't have the time to actually make the fitness work around their schedule. Right, I'm here to prove that wrong. Okay, but as someone who was skinny, you know, trying to build muscle, going through this journey as a skinny individual, and one thing that I definitely wasn't doing back then when I was listening to all this mainstream advice and people who are trying to sell you rubbish, is that I was not eating enough, and I certainly wasn't eating the right foods. I simply thought if I could just eat whatever, whenever, the only choice I'm going to have is to build muscle. Wrong, right? I would eat foods that would completely mess up my gut. I would feel terrible, get frequent headaches, and I was just naive. I wasn't listening to my body, right? I wasn't listening to what my body was telling me because, you know, I thought, oh, it's okay to sacrifice, you know, how I feel temporarily to actually gain the muscle and look cool. I didn't even gain the muscle until, you know, much later when I actually started making good food choices, right? And I had to realize that, firstly, if you were in the same position I am and you're trying to build size, you need to try and pick calorie dense food options, right, that are healthy, high protein and nutrient dense. Because when you know, pick these food options, right, they're going to help performance, you're going to get your macros in, and they're going to be healthy for you, right, and completely recreate your, you know, what your gut craves, what you actually crave, right? And if you eat more of those, right, you're obviously going to just crave more of those healthy whole foods, and that's what you want to do. But you have to realize I was not eating enough, and it was as simple as that. Yes, you need to be getting your carbs, protein, and your fats, and it's super essential, but I wasn't eating enough, right? And I wasn't eating the right foods, nutrient dense foods that were making me feel good. So that's something also, if you want to optimize your performance, and you know, you're currently snacking at the office maybe right now, you're going out buying food at lunch, right? That's another way, another reason why you don't feel like you have the energy, why you don't feel like you can perform to the highest standard, and you crash at 2 p.m. It's because you're eating office food, right? You're eating the biscuits, the cakes, the things that they provide you. Now, like I said, right, it's okay to have the biscuits and the cakes now and then. But if that's all you've got around you and you're being tempted by it all the time, and you're not already, you know, to a point where you can safely say, no, I'm not going to have those things because I know I've seen results and I know what I need to do, then you're going to give in to them, and it's not going to help with your journey. So you have to start making conscious decisions and limiting the ability for you to even be tempted, for the cravings to even happen, right? And if you pair this with being fully equipped and being able to have the discipline to say no, you pair those two together and you're going to make so much progress, okay? And, you know, the reason I'm saying this is because when I was younger, I don't know if you realized, don't know if you guys know, but in nursery for the first 5 years of my life, I had really, really bad reflux, which is essentially I had a problem with the valve that closes after you swallow food. So most of the time when I would try eat pretty much any food, it would come straight back up. I would throw it up. And I had that pretty badly for the first 5 years of my life. And every day I would go into nursery, I remember my parents would make me cream cheese pasta, like a box of cream cheese pasta, and like some Marmite crackers. Okay, and the Marmite crackers, they did do at my nursery, but that was the only thing I could eat from that nursery. Keeping in mind, I had to have cream cheese pasta pretty much every day. Shout out to my parents, right? Shout out to my mom and my dad. They fully cooked, right? They really, yeah. But that's essentially what happened, right? I had cream cheese pasta every single day for 5 years, essentially, and that's all I had with Marmite and crackers. And I brought that into nursery, keeping in mind that they actually provide you with hot food. So I've got a little tub every day. And I remember spending pretty much most days on like this baby, well, you know that thing that babies go like get their nappy changed on? Not like the hard things in the toilets, but like the little plastic stretcher looking things. You know what I mean? If you guys know, you know. But I would lie on that, just throwing up into a sick bowl, right? And that's why, firstly, I was so, you know, just underweight, skinny, and just malnourished at the start of my journey. Well, I'm saying start of my journey. This is like, I'm like 3-4 years old talking about start of my journey. But you know, you guys know what I'm saying, right? And that is all the more reason why I take my diet so seriously now, because I'm truly blessed that I'm, you know, that I'm still breathing, that I'm alive, able to still build muscle, and I'm healthy now, making good, healthy food choices and eating nutrient dense, healthy whole foods that make me feel good. Because back then I was limited, right? And when you have a health problem, no matter all your other problems that you thought you had, they will disappear, because your health is wealth. You can't continue moving forward with anything else that you're doing if you're in poor health conditions, if you're lying in a hospital bed, right? If you're sick, if you're ill. And something that I really, really noticed is when I was, a hard gainer, eating whatever, doing whatever to put on size, my immune system tanked. I would get ill probably 3-4 times a year, and I just thought there was something wrong with me. But it was my diet, right? I wasn't eating healthy whole foods, right? I felt weak. I just felt like a twig. I felt like my immune system was shot, and the truth is, it was. So if you guys are feeling like this now, you have a lack of energy, you feel like you just have a lack of confidence, but understand that fitness will give it all back, right? So stop thinking it's a burden. Start implementing the strategies I mentioned in this video, right? And realize that it's something that will give you more life force. It took me so long to realize that, but I really hope you guys, this information transfers through the screen and you really accept that today, because I don't want it to take you, 3-4 years to start realizing that, eating bad makes you feel shit and tanks your immune system, right? I don't want you to realize that you don't need to be spending 6 days in the gym a week for 2 hours each time. I want you to start making those good decisions, start building those good habits, and start living the life that you want to live, because you can. But you just need to get the mindset of fitness is a burden and something that you can't do out of your mind, or that you don't need to do, or that you'll get around to doing. Because when you have that mindset, right, you're already thinking in something that's unsustainable. You're already subconsciously convincing yourself that fitness is something you have to do, is a burden. Right? But it's something you get to do within your lifestyle, something enjoyable you get to do throughout your day. So that is truly how I was able to go from extremely skinny, insecure, and just felt like I was trapped and isolated from everyone else mentally, to being confident, jacked, right, on a busy schedule, having responsibilities, being at school for the first half of that journey, having clubs, exams, things going on, right, people to help, right? So I really hope that resonates with you guys. And obviously now, even on a busy schedule, I'm starting my own business, I'm taking the gym seriously, we're starting new things, right? Well, we're always working, right? So there is no excuse, no matter what you do, right? You need to make those small changes, start doing what you're supposed to do, and you figure out very, very quickly that it gives it all back, that you can make the time easily, because you're going to find the time easily. So I really hope you guys found that useful, me giving you guys an insight on sort of my journey, from being skinny and everything that happened all the way up to me being in shape and building over, 60 to 70 pounds of lean muscle, right? So I really hope you guys found that useful. And if you guys do want one-on-one coaching, you do want to, have a mentor and have a coach that's with you, holding you accountable, rooting for you, and actually cares every single step of the way of your journey, make sure to check out the description. There will be a link below where you can go ahead and book a call with me. And on there, bro, it will just be me and you, and we can discuss your goals, where you're at, where you want to be, and if you're a good fit, and if I can even help. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I see you guys next time.